I'm Claire, and this is my mate Anna. 10 years ago, Anna and I drove a Ford Fiesta 10,000 kilometres from the UK to West Africa. We'd bought it off eBay for less than £250. We had no service history and almost no mechanical know-how. The West Africa we saw is a different one now, and today's politics would make this trip a challenge to repeat. Our breakdowns were outnumbered only by adventures, and we got way more mileage from our car than we'd ever hoped for. 10 years later, this is our story. In our last episode, we were heading from Jenne to Mopti, where we planned to overnight and plan logistics for our onward journey to Timbuktu. As we got closer to Mali's north, we found ourselves creeping towards the same arid landscapes we'd left behind in Mauritania. Given the Sahara yawns its way across the entirety of North Africa from east to west, it was hardly a surprise that we'd end up surrounded by sand once we followed the compass north again. Besides, Timbuktu's location as a remote outpost on the edge of the all-expansive Sahara was exactly why it had become synonymous with describing somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Though Timbuktu had been a centre of wealth and Islamic learning in the Middle Ages, we had been told to expect a town whose grandeur had long since faded, while the desert slowly reclaimed it. Travel advisories also put a big cross against travelling on any of the roads towards Timbuktu from Mopti, and we were reminded that less than 2 years earlier, a British tourist had been kidnapped near Timbuktu and beheaded. Beyond possible security concerns, the road to Timbuktu was unsealed and badly corrugated, with a reputation for destroying any cars that weren't 4x4s. We therefore planned to leave our car in Mopti and find someone to organise a 4x4 for the return journey instead of driving ourselves.
What's going on, Dunks?
We're going to Timbuktu, finally.
Cool.
It takes us a while.
How are we getting there?
We get a car there and we get a car back. That's pretty much it. Costs us 15 grand each way.
Bit steep, but we get to sit on the roof.
We get to sit on the roof, yeah.
So we paid for the cheapest possible.
We don't get food, but it does leave whenever we want.
Mind you though, we have jam.
We do have jam and bread.
Stale bread. Yeah. What's going on, Claire?
I don't know what's going on. Are we going to Timbuktu?
We have a pool. It's pretty bloody amazing.
We'd been exploring Mopti for a few days, taking advantage of our last refuge from the desert for a while. We'd also found ourselves a ticket tout for the 4x4s north, but were unconvinced he was the most reliable guy, given the price he'd charged us was somewhat higher than what we'd found written on the receipt. On questioning him about it, he acted confused and just offered to cross out the number on the receipt as a way of solving the whole dilemma.
It's a cool place. We like it. What's that? It's a fiesta.
Either way, we had the granny parked up and a rooftop to sleep on in Mopti before heading out of town the next day for a 10-hour 4x4 journey to Timbuktu.
So Anna, what are we waiting for?
We're waiting for the cut to take us to Timbuktu, but it's Africa time.
Yeah, so while you're waiting, might as well.
Oh my god, he takes away the nail varnish too. He's doing this properly. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this for ages. Look at this.
Despite promises that the 4x4 would leave whenever we wanted, that wasn't actually true. Instead, we'd been taken hostage by African time and were finding ways to entertain ourselves.
So, this dude is busily cleaning up Anna's nails for a whole 100 francs. Behold, the mighty car that will take us to Timbuktu. Only 12 passengers to fit in. It's in good shape. Quite excited.
Before we could hit the road, we needed enough passengers to turn up to make the 10-hour journey worth the driver's while.
I'm so glad you convinced me, Claire. This is amazing. This is proper spa. This is spa a la Timbuktu.
In a shack. At the bus stop.
While Anna got her nails cleaned just in time to get them dirty in the Sahara again, we waited around until the word came that it was time to head out of Mopti. Forget the street-side boot polishers. This guy had far greater appeal for a group of flip-flop wearing backpackers.
So Duncan, we're all ready to go, right? Yeah. The car's here, getting loaded up. What's that though? We can't leave. Why can't we leave?
Where are you from? I come from Monday.
What?
Oh yeah?
Anna's getting a pedicure.
African pedicure.
It's so good.
Is it good? Does it feel good?
We're ready.
What's he washing it?
Right now you're ready. Maybe you check in the car. You're gonna Timbuktu. You see nice of the barrel and taking a nice picture over there.
They look
The
nice.
Timbuktu, no worries, nice place. Anything you have the problem, you come and you're gonna England. You tell all the England people you have the problem.
The guy dressed in blue there was our ticket tout, and he'd come to round us up.
People have the problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
But we can't get in the car because look.
we need to.
We were about to find out that our tout was exactly what he seemed.
And we're off. Story morning, Laurie.
Well, we bought tickets for the car of 15,000 and then found out the places we were sitting in where we had no necks or heads were 12.5. So we kind of just jumped in the correct seats that we should have been given. Now old mate's not happy and he's calling the dodgy guy who stitched us up and basically made a 10k profit. And he's on the phone going, cards me in.
Because this was our seats where we were supposed to sit.
With
all
4
of
people
us.
on each side. No, three on each side.
Six people there.
6.
Oh, nice. I was on the floor, like there.
Yep. And now old mate's on the phone to our, I'd say knight in shining armour, but he was really more of a scam artist in a bright blue.
A blue git. Also,
with amazing
it's not
headphones.
8 o'clock anymore.
It's not really 8 o'clock.
For about 3 hours.
That's
Look.
kind of the least of your concerns in African time,
And
isn't
we've gone
it?
about, what, 100 metres? 150 metres.
Yeah.
It was 3 hours since we'd left our hotel, and we'd not yet managed to make it out of Mopti. We did at least manage to stay in our new seats, given it was about to get much longer than 10 hours to Timbuktu. But it was nice to have the illusion of going somewhere, even if it wouldn't last long.
Just doesn't quite come.
What's going on in the back then? Is it still clear?
They can fit another cutty in.
Yeah, they can fit a few more in,
Do
definitely.
you want to do some filming from that side?
So,
Come on, monsieur.
We've got
Yeah, we...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not
Definitely.
enough. It definitely fits. Some more
definitely
people there.
more. 6, 7, 8,
You're an American.
9, 10. Another one that intermittently sits there, jumps out occasionally. And a guy with two men with amazing hats.
We'd made it a little further, but were still on the tar road before Dwensa, where we needed to take a badly corrugated 4x4 track for the worst hours of the journey to Timbuktu.
There's a few people on the roof.
Yeah, not sure. And this dude outside here, this guy has been trying to buy
That's
Anna.
alright. He's been trying to buy Anna for a while. He wanted to give me a mil.
1,000?
1,000 for you.
What? Is he joking?
He only got 1 too.
1,000?
Mind you, I guess. I mean, for a man like that, you should be honoured, actually. I think you should just give yourself for free.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I can't be fussy in times like these.
No point being fussy, really, is it?
Has he?
Oh, no, we've got another dude. Oh, is that just starting to jump?
Another one in at least.
I wouldn't like to buy a cigarette, no, thank you.
The total lack of tyre tread that we'd noticed on the car earlier, together with driving on the hot tarmac once we actually got going again, was about to give us another unscheduled stop. I'll hand over to Tom from here for a reenactment of what happened next.
And then it ends up there.
We all sort of fell asleep. Let's blow out of there!
We eventually reached the turn-off to Timbuktu in Dwensa, only to come across a blast from the not-too-distant past. We'd heard nothing from the other cars after leaving them at the border with Mauritania and Western Sahara.
Did you get the car?
This was the first indication we'd had that they might have made it to Timbuktu. Our first assumption was that these guys must have found the car abandoned after it had broken down on the road.
How much did you pay for this car? You find in the road, yes?
My friend told me. Maybe you will come. Yeah.
This
My friend.
belongs to our friend.
On closer inspection, the car itself seemed to hold all the clues as to what we wanted to know about exactly what had happened.
It says 14 for the first day, so
Yeah, my friend, I give me.
Yeah, I see. It's my friends, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's good. Was it broken when you got it?
Amazing.
I love it.
Note the popped bonnet to indicate that our pit stop in Dwensa would last a while yet. Duncan was therefore taking the time to explain where both us and Mikkel's car had come from and driven to, using the map on the abandoned car as a starting point.
Around London, DC.
This is so brilliant.
Bonjour.
This is so cool.
What do you go now?
So good.
Timbuktu.
Do you think that's Pete?
I don't know, one day.
Maybe that's Peter because he was the co-driver in the end.
And the Merc badge is missing off the back too. Actually, Mikhail probably took that.
Maybe he got it,
souvenir.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Because he said he was gonna take it. There's a circle!
How funny.
See, that's the camel, the same camel as we got. So they got there on the 14th. 14th of the 1st, 2011. Mission accomplished.
How funny, we were still in workshop.
Day before my birthday. Still in workshop. Fixing clutch.
It was now the 27th of January, almost 2 full weeks later.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
We, however, were still yet to reach Timbuktu in the first place.
How do you like that?
By the time we finally left Douentza, it was getting dark. This meant we'd miss the ferry across the River Niger, leaving us to sleep on the road in the freezing 4x4 for the night.
This is where we spent the night last night. Good morning. Boy, if I can sing. Camera won't focus. It doesn't want to wake up either. Anna, where did you sleep last night?
Well, Duncan's sleeping now.
It was fucking cold. How many times did the car break down?
A million. I stopped counting at 1,000.
We'd had a rough night tetrising ourselves into various shapes while we tried to sleep in the car. We were now waiting for the ferry to start up for the day so we could get to Timbuktu.
It's been another exciting African adventure. 10-hour ride. But Duncan optimistically said, can't be as long as 10 hours. One blowout, at least. A prolonged wait in a village with abuse from small children. About 5 more breakdowns last night. Missed the ferry over to Timbuktu. Let's see how we go this morning.
The other passengers were by the food stalls at the ferry landing, soaking up the early morning sun. We eventually decided to follow suit while waiting to board the ferry. When the time finally came, we found reversing was not one of our driver's strong suits. Or maybe not driving in general, since we'd also woken the night before after he drove us into a tree. This was the second time he'd reversed into the gap on the ferry ramp. This was also how we discovered the car was not a working 4x4, since only the rear 2 wheels were turning. Since one of those wheels was now spinning in thin air, the bystanders were doing all the work to push the car out.
How hard is it to reverse in a straight line? Well, here we see an example of not being able to reverse in a straight line.
We were cold and dirty from driving almost 200 kilometres on the dusty track from Douentza with the windows open. Although cynical and exhausted, we were certainly still getting some entertainment and intrigue from watching the events unfold before us.
This is our car, by the way. The oldest car here. Full tyres.
Lots of bog though, so it's okay, because you can't see any dents, they're just slopped over. Someone cleverer than him is saying, yes, please go over to the side. Please drive over.
He's seen him.
He's like, no, I'm an amazing driver. I only got us to break down about 8 times last night. I must know what I'm doing since I drove into the water twice already and clearly can't reverse.
We were almost 24 hours into our 10-hour journey to Timbuktu after blowouts, breakdowns, and car sleepouts. We were now disinclined to give our driver the benefit of the doubt for his 3rd time lucky at boarding the ferry.
Oh, Duncan, could you explain about how good our 4-wheel drive system is on this car?
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's 2-wheel drive.
You can just see under there, you can just see the bit of wood on the suspension that's holding everything together. Far side, big bit of wood.
In this moment, we were failing to learn one of the biggest lessons to enjoying travel in Africa, realising that your version of what's logical and necessary isn't everyone else's, and just accepting complete surrender.
Don't fall from there.
Thankfully, we were about to experience a case of 3rd time lucky, and it seemed like at last our day was starting to look up. It was time to shuffle aboard and make tracks.
How are you today, Anna?
All good.
We just had the dregs of a bad night's sleep to shake off, and the socks and flip-flops that had saved us from hypothermia along with it. After 24 hours on the road, our 10-hour drive to Timbuktu was finally coming to a close.
Anna! Where are we? Sleepy? I think we're in Timbuktu, are we?
Pretty sure.
Just about.
I've seen signs. Timbuktu, Timbuktu.
In its heyday in the Middle Ages, Timbuktu was an important trading post connecting West Africa with the world. At the time, the Empire of Mali spanned all the way to the Atlantic, producing wealth from goldfields in the south, as well as salt mines in the Sahara, at a point in history when salt was literally worth its weight in gold. Timbuktu was at an intersection of trade routes connecting the Sahara with the Niger River. Gold, slaves and ivory would travel north from the Niger River and onto the Mediterranean, while salt arrived on camel caravans travelling south from the Sahara. It wasn't just goods that travelled along these trade routes, but also ideas. As indigenous rulers in Mali's empire came into contact with Arab merchants, they adopted Islam, and Timbuktu became a centre of learning. With several universities teaching anything from Islam to physics and medicine, Timbuktu attracted significant scholars, clerics, and manuscripts, making it the holiest city to the south of the Sahara. But times, borders, and influence all change, and we had finally arrived to see what might be left of mighty Timbuktu. It was time to trawl the sandy streets and hit up the local market for a bout of people watching.
Behold, the markets of Timbuktu. And the unique headwear. Oh no, he's taken it off.
Although intriguing, it seemed doubtful that what we'd stumbled upon was any real indication of how a typical morning might be spent in the markets of Timbuktu.
What's he doing? Oh, maybe he's shaping his hat.
Improving it.
He might be.
There's no idea of the eye in the sky.
It was the sort of situation to make us wonder how often we'd been caught doing strange things to entertain ourselves without knowing we'd been performing for an audience.
While suspenseful, the onlookers look on.
Hey, he's put it back on.
It seems we'd found ourselves a kindred spirit who wasn't afraid of wearing creative outfits in the middle of nowhere.
The hat is good. Do you know though, do we need more modifications or is that sufficient?
Travel, making overexcited peeping toms of us all.
No. The hat appears to now be perfect.
With the market offering little insight into Timbuktu's wealthy past, it was time for an obligatory camel ride off into the Sahara's sand dunes. Heading out into the desert, the idea was to watch the sunset from a sand dune while drinking tea and watching the stars spread out across the darkening sky. What actually happened was that our guides sat us down in the sand while attempting to sell us Tuareg bangles. It seems Timbuktu was still fully functioning as a trading post after all. Being at the intersection of history and trade routes, Timbuktu was certainly a reminder that all too often the journey is the destination, and after 2 short days we were back on the road to Mopti once more.
What's that?
Have a smell.
Petrol bread. So
That is
The bag was full of petrol. And then you put the bread in the bag.
the fresh new baked bread. It's amazing. It's quite reeky. It's bread on fire!
Sweet.
That is half a kilo sugar per cup, at least.
We were having lost in translation issues with breakfast that required more willpower than we had between us to fix.
And that is Claire's second cup of
Basically
tea,
Pretty
but
much not black tea.
and then it comes out as very white sugary tea, and the next time it comes out like black coffee, which makes me happy, but Claire's not so happy.
What else aren't we happy today?
What did we do last night?
Oh, we got up at 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
4 really, to get our taxi. Didn't turn up until
6:30.
6:30. Not that early. I thought it was later.
After a bit of harassing, we were the harassing people.
There was a dude asleep, basically. Anna spotted him, so we turned the light on and woke him up. Where's the cat? It's like, it's coming, go away.
Our ride back out of Timbuktu had been hours late after getting stuck behind a sand dune trying to pick up passengers before us.
But we went camel riding. How was that?
Quite exciting, except the aim of our camel ride being a sunset ended up being missed because we were being harassed by Tuareg jewelry.
Oh, they sold more fucking jewellery.
So what happens? We missed the sunset.
We missed the sunset.
We did miss the sunset.
And we didn't go back under the stars.
No.
Mind you, we came back and it was very nice table made for us. And a fire. And dindins. And what was special with dindins?
It was a special bread which
exciting.
is baked in the aroma of 13 spices.
14 spices.
14, including sand.
Quite spec. It was boiled bread, basically.
It said he needed the bread for 4 hours.
I think that's quite accurate.
I don't think it was. But it tasted like the dough balls.
But bigger.
But bigger. And
soaked in something.
wet.
Yeah, very wet.
This
Right,
is a 1,000-year-old recipe, apparently.
but now we're leaving Timbuktu.
Without my hat.
No, without Dunk's hat.
€150
That's the new Mission Impossible for 2011. Get Dunk's hat back.
Because it's currently in the middle of nowhere.
It is
It's
in,
literally in Timbuktu.
which is in the middle of bloody nowhere. We'll get it, Dunks. Don't you worry.
I swapped a €150 hat for...
Oh, did you leave it at the tourist office?
No, I left it at the thing. But we got this instead.
Chef de bureau. Timbuktu.
There would be no chance to recover Duncan's hat, as he'd decided Timbuktu was the end of the road for him, and he'd leave us for good in Mopti. This time when the ferry turned up, we were actually awake enough to appreciate the contrast between the lush floodplains lining the Niger River and the Sahara Desert we'd just bundled our way back out of. We were also awake enough to notice the consequences of habitual overloading of vehicles and boats that we'd been experiencing since leaving our own car behind for public transport.
That's
That's the public boat.
that's a public boat, and it's they know how to pack.
When figuring out how to get to Timbuktu, we'd been told the boat from Mopti was an alternative to going by road. Being low water on the Niger, larger boats with cabins were out of the question, and only the smaller wooden boats could still make the journey.
That's what we would have been sailing down on.
We would have died.
It would not have been comfortable, for sure.
The journey to Timbuktu began appealing to Europeans in the 13th century after one of Mali's kings, Mansa Musa, travelled trade routes to Mecca for the Hajj. Musa was the richest man who ever lived, his wealth eclipsing that of anyone alive today. He travelled to Mecca with tens of thousands of slaves and a gold-laden caravan, handing out so much gold on his way through Egypt that its value on the local market nosedived, taking 12 years to recover. Word reached Europe, and Musa was depicted on the Catalan Atlas of the world with a gold nugget in one hand and a golden staff in the other. Expecting a city made of gold, Europeans aspired to travel to Timbuktu in the hopes of finding Musa's riches. By the time the first European reached Timbuktu in the 1800s, its grandeur and power had already long since faded, and the fabled city failed to meet expectations. As we took the long road back to Mopti, we could claim no such disappointments, having been offered no promises. Instead, it was one last hurrah before Duncan would leave us to catch the bus back to Bamako with his surfboard and fly home to the UK.
That would be Dunks trying to get his board not to fall off the roof of the bus. They looked very surprised when he pulled out his own straps. They all trying to tell him what to do. He's not really happy. Alright!
Like Rambo!
Rambo! Shows! It's a video camera.
We would be one man down for our drive to the Dogon Country, where Granny's brakes would stop working at all, and we will see you there next episode.
Hi, present day Clare here. New episodes will be uploaded every Sunday, so hit subscribe if you'd like to be notified when it's time to watch. Thanks and see you next time.